So I was looking on YouTube one day and I was like, how do these people live?
Yeah.
I want to live like them.
Yeah.
So I found it was the freedom. Wasn't even the money. I gathered the kids together and I'm like, let's just make some skits as a family. What's the worst that could happen?
Wow.
And within 2 weeks, I was able to like quit my jobs, all of them.
Right.
Because by the first month, we were making 6 figures per month just with AdSense.
We are back for another podcast episode. Here's a question I want to ask for our viewers out there. Making the shift from being a content creator to a business owner can be tricky. It's not necessarily, in fact, in no way is it a straight line. And understanding what your value proposition is, how do I actually make this into a sustainable business, is something that we don't have many examples of, but we're excited that today we do have a guest with us, with Rita Mitchell, who is the CEO and founder of Onyx Star Media. Did I say that right?
Yes, you did.
Okay. All right. And they have how many subscribers and how many views across all the channels?
Okay, across all of our content, which would be all of YouTube, TikTok, Snapchat, Instagram, everywhere, even Twitch now. We have over 10 million subscribers and followers. Whoa. And then we have over 5 billion views.
And here's the thing. So, because there are some that I've had a privilege of working with that have a version of the success that you've experienced in terms of views and subscribers, but they don't necessarily have a business. Right. Like they haven't been able to translate that into an empire. And so we're excited today to be able to dive in and really talk through what that looks like, what it means, or at least from your experience, right? Because you've got the receipts. I don't. But from your experience, what that process has been to go from creating content, hitting the publish button, and then managing what some would call a content empire, right? So that's absolutely
I would certainly
amazing.
call it that.
Yeah, definitely a content empire. I do want to say this. There's a phrase that a coach of mine shared with me, and it goes along with the story, but the phrase is, it stopped being enough. It stopped being enough. There's a level of success that, you know, it's exhilarating. You get your dopamine hit. You feel good and when you've arrived there, but at a certain point, you start to realize that level of success is not enough to sustain you feeling fulfilled, number one. Number two, you being able to really hone in on your why, or fulfill your why, I should say. And so there's a guy who got a chance to work with when I lived in South Africa. I lived there for 5 years with my family, and he was the janitor at the office where I worked. And who's so cool. I would hang out with him, just kind of learning the culture. We lived in South Africa, but he was from Zimbabwe. So, and for those that understand the dynamics there, that's actually fairly common. So we would chat on a regular basis. And I would always talk to him about, you know, launching businesses, different business ideas, business structures and strategies. And this probably went on for about a year or so. But I did not realize that the janitor job was not his only job until way later in our friendship. And it's only when I went with him back to Zimbabwe that I was picked up from the airport with him, but by a driver. And the driver was calling him his boss. And I was like, oh.
Who are you?
How does this work?
This is giving Coming to America.
Exactly.
How does you were the janitor over here, but then
very much Coming to America vibes.
This guy, I mean, to make a long story short, because it's a very long story, but this guy he had 4 or 5 what I would call bed and breakfast, but it's more like a hotel. I mean, he was like, we're talking about 20, 30 unit buildings. He had 30 plus cars running around. Like the guy who picked us up, he came with 2 cars so that he could give his boss that car.
Wow.
And me and him drove in that car while he went on his way to go back to work because he had another car he needed to go drive around for the boss.
So he was big time is what you're trying to say.
Yes, exactly. So I asked him the question like, man, so at what point did it not at what point did you make the shift in your mindset that this was what you wanted to do? For him, it was an issue of, okay, the dollars that he was earning in South Africa enabled him to support an entire infrastructure and business back home. Okay. Just the way the exchange rate worked at the time. I don't know if it's the same now, but he used the same phrase that I started with, saying, being here and experiencing South Africa and living in this way just stopped being enough. And I wanted more. And I want to encourage those that are listening, as you're thinking about your content, as you're thinking about success that you've experienced. And listen, you celebrate that success, but will that success be sustainable in the long haul? Is there ever a moment where you will ask yourself, do I want more? Do I want more? All right. This is the How It All Works podcast. I'm your host, Kirk Nugent. This is my lovely co-host,
Taina Nixon.
And we're excited to be back for another episode. And this time we're talking with Rita Mitchell. So just tell us how you guys, I've heard versions of the origin story in terms of Onyx family and your platform and all of the different things that you're doing. But just in a brief version for those who are watching and listening, maybe haven't been, I guess, introduced to you before. What is that story? How did you guys get into the content side of what you do?
Okay, well, my husband, he was a minister in the Adventist Church in Ontario in Canada. I'm from Los Angeles. We met in Oakwood, and we got married
here in Huntsville, right?
Yeah, here in Huntsville, and I had worked my way up from, being an aide to an LPN to an RN to an NP. And the whole time I was really just not satisfied. I knew that this was not what I was supposed to be doing. I just knew it, but I didn't know what.
There's more. Okay,
and
good.
Every time I wanted to quit and do something else, my husband would say, don't quit until you know what you want to do. And so he was like the mature one. Well, I was like, I just don't want to do this,
Yeah.
And I tried everything. I mean, every field you can think of. I was a professor. I did neuro. I did pain management. I did geriatric. I did community. I did everything, trying to figure out what I wanted to do. So the final thing was, I was working with these doctors in Toronto. And they were like, Rita, we want to do a nurse practitioner-led community primary care where you go see patients in the home in Florida. And I was like, oh, yes, I'm going to get out of the sun, out of the snow and into the sun. And my husband was like, you're not going to like that either. And I was like, no. I'm going to like this.
Yeah. This is
what I've been waiting for,
exactly.
And because they're Canadian, I'm American, they were like, and because I was leading it, they were like, we want to make you the CEO. So that's music to my ears. Okay, I'll be the CEO. And you go down there, you start getting everything ready. And I thought, okay, this is what we're going to do. So my husband, who was fully a minister and just doing everything, in Toronto, he was like, Rita, if you don't like this, then I'm leaving ministry for something you're going to probably want to quit.
Whoa.
And it was huge decision. But at the time, I was just so miserable in just my career. I was like, I have to try it. I have to. So I went down to Florida, and my husband, he came down with me. And he was just like, what am I doing? Right? 17 years. And anybody who's in the ministry knows, once you're in, you don't leave.
You don't just leave. Yeah.
You don't leave.
You're like a made man.
It's like, once you leave, that's it. Right?
It's mafia.
And he was like, maybe I could get a job down in Florida. But it just is like, it's like God was like, no. But we didn't know why. Right? And true to his word, I started to hate it.
Oh, no.
I was getting everything ready for that career. But I still had to work, for other people because when you're starting
it's not
established,
it wasn't established.
You have to get credentialed and all sorts of stuff with the hospitals and the insurance companies. And so I was working as an MP with several other jobs. So I was I was doing so much. I was doing online stuff, and I was going, I had started working with this practice, and I was literally leaving the house at 7 and wouldn't come back until 6 p.m., spend maybe half an hour with everybody eating, and then charting till midnight.
Oh, wow.
That was everything. And then on top of that, getting everything ready for the other job. So I was hating it already. I was like, I'm done. So I was looking on YouTube one day and I was like, how do these people live?
Yeah.
I want to live like them.
Yeah.
So what did you see? What type of
what
content?
drew you to that?
I saw people waking up when they wanted. I saw people.
The time freedom.
Yes.
Yes.
I saw people, it was like 10 o'clock in the morning and they'd just be like, going to Target.
Right.
You know, and I found it was the freedom. Wasn't even the money.
Yeah.
Because we had not reached at that point. This is around 2016.
Okay.
And we hadn't really seen, I think, like the way that exploded with like everybody showing off their
influencing
wealth.
and all that.
Right.
Yeah.
It was more just like I see these families, they're all together and they have freedom. And so my son had been saying, I want to be like this other YouTuber who just reviewed toys. And I was like, I don't know what that's about, but you know, but then when I started looking and I said, that might be like, just YouTube in general might be something that we want, because I started to see people doing these skits, and this is going to be important because they were doing these skits with Marvel costumes and DC comic costumes. And I was like, okay, why would grown-ups do this? They must be getting paid.
Exactly.
You know, whenever like you see
what is
something
the incentive for an adult to put on these costumes?
Why would I do that?
Why would they do
that and record themselves?
Never.
So I was like, And so there was this site where you could go and see how many views a channel got. And so I saw this channel that had flipped to doing these superhero skits, and I was like, oh my goodness, they're making like a ton of money. So I say to the kids, my husband, he's like not in the room.
Yeah.
And he's already seeing that I'm hating this. And he's like, oh my goodness. You know, he's like, you know, I have no one else to blame but myself. I knew you were going to quit. You know, you were going to want to quit. But so I gather the kids together and I'm like, okay, guys, listen, let's just make some skits as a family. I explained to them everything. And I said, what's the worst that could happen? What's the word? We make family memories.
Yeah.
You know? And I said, I have no idea how these people get paid, but I don't know, maybe it'll bring in something extra and then I can spend more time with you. Because that's how I really started.
See,
I wanted to spend more time.
That's good.
And so Murthal, my husband, walks in while I'm telling them that. And he was like, what's going on? And I was like, oh no. I didn't want to tell him yet because he would have been like,
we wanted to kind of stage it a little bit.
Yes. Oh my goodness.
Idea.
And he heard what I told him exactly what I wanted to do. And he said, all right, let's go to Party City and get some costumes. And I was like, what? He's like, Rita, like, I already know, like, we're hate done. What you're doing.
Yeah.
Right. Let's just go. Let's just
gold.
See.
Wow.
What I didn't know, though, was that he had been praying. And he had been wanting to do like a praying and fasting because he saw that our lives were just like in an upheaval.
Okay.
Because we were down there. He was away from something he'd been trained his whole life for. His father was a pastor.
My God.
This was supposed to be generational.
Generational. It's a family business.
Exactly. Yeah. And we're down there. I'm the only one working because he's Canadian. So we had to go and get his like green card.
All that stuff. Wow.
And so it was just like, it was so much stress, you know, and he was like, so we went and we got the costumes. And a couple of things I told the kids. I said, number one, if we do this, now my youngest was 9. My oldest was about, this is 2016. So she was about like 16, 17.
Okay.
So they were not too young.
Small children.
And I knew that what we were doing, we were going to be covered, like masks. And this is important for why, when it switches into what becomes a business.
Yeah.
So anyway, I said, listen, you're not going to look at comments though. Unless everybody here can all come together and say, we will not look at comments, then we won't do this. Exactly.
Oh, this is interesting.
Because at that time, especially
those ages.
It was like, you know, the age and also the filters were not like how they are now.
Exactly.
And it was just like, it was
a
wild
west.
Yeah, it would be a dumpster fire in YouTube comments.
Yeah.
And I told them, I said, because I've seen too many YouTubers just lose their minds.
Correct.
And then they start catering to the audience and you're never going to please everybody.
You never,
and I
ever.
always use this like analogy. Like I don't go and expect like Jennifer Aniston to like talk to me or Oprah.
Right.
Like they just do their thing. And if I want to watch something, then I do it. If I don't, I move on.
That's right.
And just because you're on social media, it doesn't mean you have this obligation.
Right.
You do not have to answer comments.
That's right.
You don't have to interact.
You don't have to respond. You're right. Yeah,
you just don't. And it's not rude. It's just like your boundaries.
That's right.
So they said, okay, we're going to do that. And then my husband said, and he gave the analogy of, the widow with the oil, and you know how she had to shut the door and she had to fill,
pour the oil, right?
Exactly. He said, we're going to shut the door. We're not going to tell anybody what we're doing. Because one of the things that I always said too is, do not rely on family and friends.
Oh, that's right. Good.
You cannot rely on them.
Nope.
No.
Because
they're not your target audience.
There's two reasons.
No, not at all.
Exactly. There's actually a very practical reason too. If you get an initial, 50 curious people from your your friends and family, and then they all log off, like, I'm not watching that again.
Right.
The algorithm goes,
no,
this
they're
must
not
not be good.
This must not be good.
Right.
Yeah.
And
it's not organic.
You can't expand exponentially
Yeah.
with friends and family.
That's right.
No.
So
you're gonna run out of friends and family.
Exactly. And they're gonna be all sick of you.
Exactly.
And you're like, can you watch it again? So what we did was like, where we make the content, we're making it for the audience that wants it.
Okay.
Yes.
So we started.
These are all, this is all gold already.
I hope you're taking notes.
It's all gold already. All right, continue.
So we started making content, and at first I was like, 9 views. What's that? I want what everybody else is getting, all of these like hundreds of thousands, even millions of views. And so I started down this like rabbit hole of like actually doing research.
Right.
So I started researching what cameras people are using, how to do the thumbnails, how to do even metadata saving.
Right.
And I started to teach the kids, like, when you're saving something, you're not just saving like the titling. You're not just doing it when it actually gets to YouTube. You're doing it from the moment you're exporting it from your computer. You are layering that metadata with tags and everything. And I explained to them how all of these like sites, it's more than just entertainment and viewing. It's actually like an organizational system. So as you're doing that, the algorithm knows where to put your content.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so
how you title the video.
Exactly.
Like even the video file name.
The file name is important.
And what you upload it as.
Exactly.
Yeah. So it's not even in the title and description. This is like before that.
Exactly.
Oh, that's so good.
That's gold. Oh,
from
my word.
the get-go in Final Cut Pro or Adobe or whatever else you're using.
Yeah.
Because before the kids were just doing like a foolish name. And I'm like, no. Let's already discuss what the title will be.
Yeah,
exactly.
That's good.
So we did that, and as I'm doing all of that, I started looking also what other people are recording. Now, the thing is, especially over like on YouTube, you look at what someone is doing and then you say, I can do a version of that. Because that's the environment.
For me, like my niche, my audience, etc.
Right.
And so we started doing that. And I would say within 2 weeks, we just started going viral.
Wow.
And within 2 weeks, I was able to like quit my jobs, all of them. I know. And it's crazy because right now on YouTube,
that's wild.
Right now on YouTube, you have like all these like hurdles before you get monetized and all that. But back then you could get instantly monetized, but it didn't mean you were going to go viral. It was just like you had to like sink or swim.
Yeah, but you could immediately start getting revenue.
Even if it was a penny.
Right.
Because earlier on, this is funny because I don't usually talk about this, but maybe like the year before, we had kind of tried YouTube just a bit.
Oh, really?
But it was everybody had like individual channels. And, I think one of our daughters made 26 cents and we were like, yes, so great.
26 cents.
And it's funny because when we stopped, because, we just got distracted and we didn't take it seriously.
Yeah.
When the second time around, I was like, you know what? And we only did it for a few months. And then I started getting really busy with work.
Right.
And when we came back around, I said, we're better together. So instead of everybody doing something separate, let's just do something together.
Right.
And that 26 cents, literally within 2 weeks, I made 26,000. Isn't that crazy?
Insane.
I know, and I talk about that because
that is wild.
People are like right now that the money on YouTube is not the same as it was like in 2016 at all.
Right.
Because by the first month, we were making 6 figures. Wow. Per month, just with AdSense. It was unbelievable.
That's crazy.
Even me, Lord. No.
And it was just like we just started. Now remember, this is like superhero costumes.
Yeah.
Right.
So I started to think, okay, I like this, but could I ever go on tour with this? Could I ever do meet and greets with this?
Right.
Yeah.
And this is where I feel like it's the shift to how do I make this a business?
Yeah.
Because like you said earlier, you can have people who get lots of views, but how do we get paid and really create an empire.
Yeah.
So the funny part is I've never been one to focus a lot on the platforms that don't pay. That came like later with them, so if people look up our content, they'll see like we have this huge audience on YouTube because I never prioritized like Instagram because it was like, are you paying me? Paid over there. Well, then no.
Exactly.
And then they were young and so I never did. Now it's like, we might put stuff on there, but we focus where we got paid.
That's exactly.
Right. And when I started to think about that,
right there,
I said, and then there was a lot of people doing superheroes, so everyone started catching on. Yeah. And then there are people starting to do like crazy things that were not good. And so we were like, we need to get out of this genre. And so by this point, the medical company, they were like, I said to them, I'll still do it. I'll still train someone though to do the clinical and to do this and to do that. I'll just be like the person just heading it. And they were like, oh no, you're reneging. And I was like, well, first of all, you guys were supposed to be down here helping me with this, but I was left on my own. And they would have, I'm supposed to be the CEO, right? Yeah. But they would have meetings before they had my meeting. So I was just no, you're not going to tell me that I can't do. So they were like, well, then why don't you?
Continue.
So they were like, why don't you sell your shares back? And I said, okay, here. Yeah. I don't fight over money. Yeah. I just don't. Right. And they were like, I can't believe you did that, Rita.
You just suggested it. I just followed your suggestion, bro.
Like, don't test me.
Exactly. They were absolutely trying to call your bluff. Yep.
Exactly. Because I will do it.
Exactly.
But I think but you had latitude though because of what was coming in from YouTube. You did have, and this is another why. This is another reason why people turn to content is because it does create space and margin for you to be able to say no to certain things.
That's not working for me.
That's not working.
I don't have to stay here.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I have other options.
Exactly.
I have other options. I will take my genius elsewhere.
Yeah. Exactly. And that ended. And so we were just only content creators from 2016. Wow. And so by 2017, what happened was, I think YouTube started to see that people were doing really crazy things. And they started deprioritizing these channels. And so we knew that we needed to pivot. We wanted to pivot either way. And so gathered the family again. And I'm like, okay, guys, we need to pivot. But this time, we're going to unmask ourselves. Now, one of the things that I thought was interesting was that Halloween season, we didn't have costumes because we were like, we forgot it was Halloween or whatever. And we usually give out like a little note about Jesus, all that with the candy. We're witnessing. Yeah. And the kids were like, let me just get into my costumes I use for YouTube. So we were just like, they were giving them out. And we were shocked because a whole bunch of people were coming like, I watch you guys on YouTube. And we were like, what? This is like our first foray into just seeing.
And you're like at your home in your neighborhood?
Yes.
That's wild.
It was wild. So we were like, oh, wow.
That's crazy.
So
like trick-or-treating in the neighborhood.
In the neighborhood.
But this is the piece I want somebody to connect that because I'm always having this conversation around, well, digital life doesn't meet real life. And I'm like, no, it very much.
Sometimes it does.
Oh, it does.
Sometimes it does. But I think there is the concept of a friendship online is not like a friendship in person.
Right. Oh,
I'm just kind of like, because I have had there's a guy I met last week, or not last week before last at the IRL that we have talked for years. It's just we'd never met in person, but the conversation we had was like this, we were having conversations all along. So those relationships, those connections, I should say, are just as real.
Right.
And
when they see you daily.
Oh yeah.
And your kids.
Absolutely.
Well, I'll talk about how we got into the Onyx family. So I bring everybody together and I say, let's start, we'll continue to do skits, but now let's actually be unmasked and let's actually show kids who look like you.
Right.
Some family content. Right. Because growing up, I had to watch things like Cheers, Golden Girls.
Right. Yeah.
We had the Cosby Show and Disney, a different world, and that's like it.
That was it. Yeah.
But I'm watching shows that no child really should be watching.
Friends.
I do not relate to these people at all.
And my life will never look like theirs. Full House. Come on.
No, come on.
Oh man, Full House. Oh no.
I said, I would love to be like this generation's Cosby Show.
Come on.
And so
that's awesome.
I said, let's come up with names, and I had said my idea was Onyx, and the kids were like, nobody's gonna know how to spell that. And I was like, they'll learn.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And I said Onyx because I felt like, like my family are my jewels. Onyx is no more as a black.
Yeah.
I like that.
I love that.
So that's how
I never knew why you guys named that.
I love
Okay.
it. It's like
and
insider
I also
information.
never wanted it to be just like our last
Your
name.
name, exactly.
I felt like I wanted people to feel like they could be a part of our family. And so that's why I said that.
I like that.
So
the Onyx family. So then it covers everyone.
It encompasses anybody.
Anybody that wants to be with it.
Yeah,
It's very inclusive. So
Yeah.
people can self-identify.
Yes.
Oh, okay. All right. That's good. That's
and
good.
so again,
such a cheat code.
like God's favor. And we start the channel, boom, immediately. Just viral.
Wow.
What was because this is when I met you guys. I met you guys in 2017.
Yes.
Right. So like I think you had probably just started on
Onyx. Yes.
Right.
Yes. Yeah.
What was it before that?
So it's
because you weren't going by that.
It was a superhero channel.
Okay.
I don't really say. I'll tell you after the name.
Right.
Because,
you don't have
because people like search, and because that has been so perverted by people, I don't really
you don't
talk
want
about
to necessarily
that.
associate that with Onyx family.
Exactly.
Okay. But it wasn't your name, and it
wasn't
wasn't
our
Onyx
name.
family.
It was completely anonymous.
Okay.
Got
you.
Yeah.
And so when we unmasked, a lot of people did though guess. Because they were like, I see the makeup, I see the 4 kids and the 4. So a lot of them could make the connection.
Yeah, if they had watched prior, they could make the jump.
Exactly.
But those who are coming in fresh, they're meeting you for the first time.
So you restarted. You did not attempt to transfer your audience from one to the other?
Didn't even do that.
Okay.
And I deleted that other channel.
Wow.
So and over there, we had hundreds of millions of views, tons of subscribers.
Wow.
But I really was like, we are moving forward because I started to understand intellectual property.
Right.
And I was like, nope, I'm not going to be the one over here making money off of their costumes and stuff.
Yeah.
And so when I started to do that,
that's very wise. Yeah.
So when we pivoted, I also was like, okay, this is when I said, now how do I make this a business?
Yes.
Right.
And so I started to think about trademarks. I started to think about I actually incorporated at this point with the Onyx Star Media. And I started to really look at it like, okay, we are now our own studio, you know?
Yeah.
I started to make partnerships with at first they used to have something called MCNs, multi-channel networks. For the longest time I was like, I'm not going to do it. But then I did sign up with one. And I think there's a time where you do need to partner with people because then it kind of opens you up to different partnerships.
Correct. Right. Into their network.
Exactly.
As well.
And so that was good. We started to just do that and we started to get brand deals.
Nice.
And so from there, that's when it just became a business, where we were doing it. Now, what I will say, sorry, I will say is that I believe our family was called for it because every single one of us had a talent that all came together to make the business go.
Work, right.
Like for me, I was the business.
Yeah.
My husband, he's more of we always say, I'm the mind of it. He's the heart of it.
Okay.
He's, he's very much into the charity portion.
Okay, got you.
Always wanting to also have something that had some meaning.
Yeah.
Now it's not always possible. Sometimes it's just plain silly.
Right.
But so we wanted to. And then we have my one of my daughters, she's amazing with the editing. Another daughter who's really creative with writing the skits. Another daughter who's very technical and she also writes all the music.
Oh, wow.
And then you have our son who's really into just the technical part and he does a lot of the stuff. And he was also a lot of people loved him because he was the only boy.
Yeah.
So everybody had just
and he's the youngest too, so he probably draws his own age group to it.
Exactly. And everybody just came together and we were, and I find that when a lot of people ask me well, how does it work? And I'm always you have to look at your skill set and you got to know what, will that fit into this? What you're wanting,
right?
Because there's a lot of people who have said, "Oh, I want to be like the Onyx family," and I never say no. I'm okay, that's fine, but they realize that maybe one person in the family doesn't want to do it, or they realize that maybe they don't necessarily know the ideas on what to create.
Right.
So, because you have to have everything. You can't have just the business mind.
No,
you got to have the creativity,
Yeah.
and you can't have just the creativity.
You got to have it's a mix. It's a mix, and then you got to be able to edit, and you got to understand the platforms, recognize what's gonna gain traction, what's not. There's just all the different pieces of it. but I'm not saying that to make it impossible for somebody that's out there. I do believe that for you guys, you really worked with what you had and just kind of accentuated.
Capitalized on what your family brought to the table.
Because I think some of it is interest, but some of it was because there was interest, you learned it. Right? I mean, so it's not like you guys came in like, oh, I already know how to do all these pieces. There was an interest.
No, exactly. I was never an entrepreneur before that.
Right.
Wow.
And my kids were pastors' kids. They were quiet. And all of a sudden, this new entity of YouTube just brought out all these things in us that we didn't even know we had.
Wow.
And so that's why I always say, go for it. Because you never know what's inside of you.
Absolutely.
You know? So
that's so good.
Yeah. I mean, and so as we became a business, we started partnering with brands. Like, I could never believe that brands that I grew up with, that I'd be partnering with, because even with all the views and things I gave you earlier, that's not even including our distribution.
No, I was gonna say,
our
that's
distribution,
just on platforms.
We're on Peacock, we're on Hulu, we're on Disney, we're on Roku. Like, we're everywhere. And so we're on Amazon. Like, I get people, like, I was in Walmart. And so this is another thing. And I was telling Kirk earlier how it's become generational.
Yeah.
Everything that I wanted, like, God actually gave. And I'm so blessed to see that, because the group that started with us, they're all like young adults now, late teens.
Right.
Meanwhile, their younger siblings and even the siblings under that, they're now starting to watch us.
Wow.
And so I'll have someone as young as a parent of a 3-year-old saying, oh, my child watches you daily, to someone who's like 21 who's going, oh yeah, I've been watching you guys
since I was a kid.
Since I was a kid. It's such a blessing.
Wow.
And so the way I looked at it was that I was about branding. So I knew that brands have websites. So I created a website. Brands have multiple things. So we got into music. Creating books.
Merch.
And we had merch. Branding was like something that I did. Now, I've seen people now, because branding is very easy to do now, but I see people branding before they really even have the actual like
audience.
Yeah. And it makes people feel good, and that's fine.
Yeah.
You know, but it doesn't necessarily bring the people. It has to be about that meat, you know, that branding is almost like the garnish.
Yeah.
And it's like, so once we started to have, you know, the huge audience and everything, I'm like, okay, we got to organize it and we got to brand it. And so we came up with our colors and our logo.
That's gold.
And our mottos and things like that. And we
made it a business.
Just made it a business. And the more you make it a business, the more people want to partner with you.
Right.
So, you know, we're doing partnerships with Mattel and Netflix and Nike. And like, we've done partnerships with over like 150, like Fortune 500 companies.
Amazing.
And then I know that you had mentioned earlier, we had partnered with the, during the pandemic with like Fauci and the CDC. And then during Biden's, inauguration, we did a special segment on there.
That is
crazy. And it's just because like, yes, we have the audience, but definitely it's because we organized ourselves like a business.
Yes. Yeah.
And so that's really the turning point. If you really want to go further, you've got to treat it like a business.
Correct. Yeah. So it's not because the creative side, for creatives, we can swing way off into the creative world, and we're just, I'm going to put it like this. I'm going to do it like this. I'm going to change the angle. I'm going to shoot it over here. And you just go into the creative aspect of it. But the creative aspect of it, yes, that draws people in. That is what it builds the audience, but that does not necessarily attract the brands. Correct. That doesn't tell the brand that this is an entity that I can actually work with. Right. That they're going to be able to deliver on whatever it is we're partnering on. Yeah. And then of course, as a business, you made those investments in yourself to create that infrastructure, but also it's also about delivering on what you said, right? So those brands that you had partnerships with, you're actually delivering on what you said you were going to provide for them. So there's just all those aspects of it for those that are in the content game and they're wanting to make that pivot into making it into a business. There is going to be a level of learning that is going to be, getting yourself into some spaces. We talked about some of the things that you guys were doing in terms of teaching others how to do what you do. But those are the spaces that you really want to get in. You want to get with somebody like Taina. You want to get with somebody like me. You want to be able to learn how the business side of content really goes.
Well, I wanted to mention too, because I know that for smaller content creators who are listening to this, you're like, you might be overwhelmed right now, right? So I just want to like pause and give you like a couple of very small, like low hanging fruit that you can do.
Absolutely.
So Rita is talking about branding, but that takes like intentional. I talk about this all the time, like actually sitting down and reflecting upon what do I want my brand to be?
Right.
Like when people see me, when they come across my platforms, what do I want them to be feeling and thinking about? Like, what am I trying to convey? So she used the word onyx very intentionally. Like it's a jewel, it is black, you know, like she had that thought. So be thinking about what do I want to convey and what do I want people to see? What do I want brands to see? Like if I want to be paid by a brand, right? Brands are also telling a story when they're creating, when they are advertising. How do I want them to picture me and my brand as part of their brand story, right? So looking, and also kind of making yourself a little bit more professional in your communications.
So true.
When they're coming and looking at your platforms, do you have an email address in your bio? Like, how are people contacting you?
Domain.
A domain.
Need a domain.
Something that says like, this is bigger than just like a random person. Lots of people are on the internet. There's billions of people on Instagram, billions of people on TikTok, on Twitch, on, you know, YouTube, whatever. So I would say that was just some of the first little things that I did when I didn't really know what I was doing, but I just knew that like, hey, I should probably look like I know what I'm doing. Right. So I created an email address that wasn't, I don't know, chocolatebeauty_04@yahoo.com, right? Like the email address I made in 8th grade. So I created TainaNixon@gmail.com, you know, whatever. Put that in there. Once I had my domain, then I created hello@TainaNixon.com, right? But just little things like that give brands the impression that like you're a serious person who wants to have serious conversations. You know what I mean?
Investing in your business, investing in yourself, it's important.
It's worth it.
Like trademarks are expensive.
They are.
I have like over 13.
Come on.
And, you know, they are expensive. But I have had like, I'm so glad I did. And I'm glad I did back then. Because all of a sudden Onyx is actually a pretty popular name now. And so, you know, and there's certain
and people
things.
will notice that your star is rising and try to buy your stuff.
Oh,
like
absolutely.
they will try to get your domains, try to get your names on Instagram and TikTok and all that stuff. So be ahead of that. It's very annoying. I'm still fighting for Taina Nixon.
Are you
Instagram.
Serious?
Yeah.
Like somebody caught it early. I've been fighting for it since 2019.
Well, what does this fight look like?
Mercy.
Trying to see if they will I don't even think they use Instagram anymore. So they can't even read like my DMs or anything. It's just a dead page now. So I'm the Taina Nixon, which is fine. But like Taina Nixon would have been so much simpler and like.
There's so many pieces here. My Kirk Nugent, there's a guy who won Def Poetry Jams like 4 years in a row. So he's like speaks on the speaker circle with Tony Robbins and all these guys, but he has KirkNugent.com. So mine is KirkRNugent.com. And it's
funny.
I mean, it's just kind of where I'm at. I'm not even fighting. I know I'm not going to get that. He's actually quote unquote.
Kirk Nugent.
But we're both Kirk Nugent and we're both from Jamaica. So there's no, he's actually from St. Mary. I've met him before.
Oh my
so
goodness.
I know that there's got to be somewhat of family in there, but that's a whole other conversation for another time.
Stealing your domain.
You didn't steal it. We just kind of I had the idea a little bit later than you did. I was just blown away. I was like, man, Kirk Nugent is taken. Who has that? Anyway, but one of the things it's crazy, right? It's crazy. One of the things I want to ask here, because I think, you know, just given the full gravity of all of what you do, just talk to us about what is operations and manage, like how does everything work now? Like back in the day, you know, I think there's we kind of have a picture or a window of what that may have looked like when you guys were getting ready to start it. You took the masks off, you started the channel over again. There's so much more conversation we could be having on that, but I'm interested in giving people a window into what life looks like now. Wow. For what you guys are doing.
And it's funny because for us now, when you get to a certain point, things start running itself. You know, because we're not building anymore.
No,
we're branching. You know, and so the building looks really different. You know, the building is hard. The building is late nights. The building is like
grinding.
trying to be a machine.
Yeah.
You know, and it's funny. Like briefly, we did slime. I don't know if you've seen slime. Like it's like, you know, you just make it with like the glue and the borax. And that was actually really successful, but it was so successful that we looked at each other and we said, is this the life we want?
Right.
Because so there's some people hilariously knowing us more from the slime. Because we made videos about the slime. And it's just funny.
The slime craze was a crazy era.
It
like,
was.
were we okay as a country?
I know.
Why did slime go so crazy?
It was like, what is it, like an ASMR kind of a
I
thing?
think maybe that's what it is. Bro,
And
we have language for it now.
Right. Because we had all of this experience with branding and building, it was really easy to create the new business.
Right.
So
because you already had basically the building blocks, the templates.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so it was really easy, really, and it just took off like that. So we were at a point where we were going to have to get a warehouse.
Oh, wow.
And we were going to have to hire employees. That's how it just, and so we said, you know what? We are an online family.
Yeah.
Right.
We don't like a lot of overhead. So we were like, no, we're not going to do this anymore. And again, it's just, I'm a person, I'm very decisive like that.
Yeah.
I don't care how successful it is. If I don't want to do it, I don't want to do it.
Right.
Because as an NP, I was very successful.
Yeah.
I was known as like a diagnostician. People were like, Rita, I don't know what this is. I would come. I love the investigative part of it.
Yes.
Right.
I was going to
It's
say,
like
I
an
think
adventure.
that's also what has set your family apart is actually your investigative mind.
good.
Because the way that you were like, how are these people doing this? And then you went and researched it, found a website that told you these people are getting this many views and they're getting paid this much money for it. Like, that's your mind. That's your gift. I think one of your biggest gifts that has set your family apart.
I've heard that before.
It isn't a direct like content creator skill set.
Correct.
It's something that's just innate in you.
Right.
And I think that's another thing that listeners and viewers of the podcast can really tap into is really, what do you bring to the table that's unique, that's uniquely you? Because there are going to be other pieces of it that you have to outsource and bring in experts here or there, but there's going to be something that is your creative edge essentially. And that's definitely something that you guys bring. And I think you've been able to figure out how to bring that in for your kids and for your husband as well. So the whole family has been able to bring their creative edge in. It's a force multiplier at that point.
Right.
So that's gold. Yeah. Definitely. I wanted to kind of touch on that part. But so the slime thing didn't work out. Or
it worked out too well. We just like,
you don't want that side
well.
of it. Because that led me to another question. I don't want to derail, but I'm like, man, so because at the level you don't want to hire employees, you want a warehouse, but you do have a team around.
I have a very lean team. Wow. Very lean. I always have.
Blowing my mind.
I've always had a
for sure
very
you guys had like a large team.
Because I look at it like, are you really going to add? Or is just going to drain me?
Totally agree.
And the majority of everything that has come to us without, someone lobbying for us.
It,
okay.
Got it.
And like, for example, the CDC would call us, or Netflix or whatever brand, that we're working with, they're calling us.
Okay, I want to ask you a question about this, because this is something that I see in the like content creator space as far as like influencing, right? So there are lots of influencer coaches out there who teach you to pitch yourself to companies, right? How to pitch. And I don't know if it's laziness or ADHD or what, but I don't be wanting to pitch. I don't like pitching. So that's something that I always have in the back of my mind. Like, you probably could have made more money. You probably could have, done more if you would pitch. But I was pretty successful with them coming to me. I felt like if I put my stuff out there,
that's your biggest pitch.
And present myself a certain way. That's why I talk about how do you want brands to perceive you?
Yeah.
Because I don't really pitch. I would say 99.9% of the opportunities that I've had, and they've been good ones.
Yep.
Target, Aveeno, JCPenney, McDonald's, they've all come to me.
Yeah.
Yes.
And what do you think about
has been
that?
Very similar. I've never pitched.
I totally agree. Your biggest pitch is your content.
Okay.
Yeah.
Your biggest
pitch
is
you put the content
out
already.
Doing.
I don't feel so bad now.
And I
totally agree.
I would say a weakness of mine, honestly, is sales. I'm not good at sales.
Okay.
I'm the type of person that it's like, I just don't. I don't like to like say, hey guys, this is what I do. And do you want to be like, I don't do that.
Yeah.
And so everything was always like, if they like it, they'll come.
Right.
And same with the slime. Like, we did videos, but it wasn't very salesy. It was more creative.
Okay.
Yeah.
You know, and then if people were curious, like, oh, I want to do that. The whole pitching.
Yeah.
I feel like it's just a way for some of these people to make money, like selling courses on how to do it, you know? And I feel like, you know, it's the brands are constantly looking online. They're looking to see who they can partner with. And,
I think that's what it was for me. Because my first brand deal came, I think I probably had 2,000 some followers. So I was like, if they can find me.
Exactly.
At 2,000, they're searching for people.
They can definitely find.
They're searching for people.
Yeah, absolutely.
I am, you know, I'm geotagging myself. I'm putting where I am so that local places that might be looking for ambassadors or whatever can find me. I'm tagging myself. I think at the time I was doing like lifestyle motherhood type content primarily, so I would tag myself that way. Sometimes I would tag a company in my stuff. Like if I'm wearing Ralph Lauren, I always dress my son in Ralph Lauren. I'd tag them or whatever, which I think is probably how retail companies started finding us, was because I was tagging retailers in that way. But I feel great now.
No. Definitely never did the pitch thing. Never did the pitch thing either.
It's also grueling because, you know, to constantly have to pitch yourself and, you know
how they do it.
Yeah. It's too much work when you could be making content.
Yeah, it's not a natural space to be in. I have gone through several programs that kind of walk you through how to get sponsors and brand deals and different things like that. If you want to be a more proactive and not just, but the base of even those programs still has a large component of you've got to
create the content.
You've got to create the content, and you have to be attracting, because the way you get another brand deal is by the brand deal that you were able to attract. So the fact that you have those brand deals in your list, you just create a one sheet. And then somebody can download.
And that's what I did. Like with our website, we have a spot where we show all of the brands.
All the brands that you work with.
You know?
Yeah.
That's
there's
where
no
it is.
pitch
That's
necessary.
The pitch.
Right.
You
and
know?
like you said, if it goes well with those companies and you maintain good relationships, I believe they talk to one another.
They do.
Oh,
I believe they talk to one another.
Because a lot of brands use agencies.
Yes.
And so that agency will
Works for
represent
multiple.
several brands.
Yeah.
And the creator world is a lot smaller than people think.
Agreed.
You know,
Yeah.
and so you can get a name.
Yes, good or bad.
Good or
bad.
Yes.
And
Very
so
quickly.
it is so important
Yeah.
that you become professional.
I have a little bit of a story there. I worked with McDonald's the first time, right? It was like it was a gifting. It wasn't even, and they always tell you like, don't just work for free and whatever. But I was like, dude, it's McDonald's. Like I'm taking the merch, like, and I will create this content, and I'm gonna make it really good content too. So Paul came out with a professional camera, and we did like a whole thing for a gifted thing. But I was like, if this works, it's McDonald's, right? And so that went well. And then they hit me up like, hey, we've got this gospel thing, and you're Christian, right? Like you, and I was like, yeah, I'm Christian. I was like, I sing, I've sung in gospel choirs, I've sung solo. Like, what you want? What you got? You want me to sing? They're like, no, we just want you to go to a McDonald's. We have a poster, like promote the gospel choir or whatever. I was like, no problem. They do a gospel choir fest actually. McDonald's does every year.
That's right.
And so I was like, perfect. And it was totally natural. I did it. They paid me. Great. And then I did a second campaign with them, and I wasn't getting paid. I was like, what's going on? Because usually they were very fast about it. And so I did my research and went above the head of the person who was supposed to have paid me, and come to find out that person had been let go. Right. And so that's why my check hadn't come through, and why I hadn't heard from them, and like whatever. But then apparently they had been talking amongst themselves, and I'm guessing they have a list of people that they've worked with in the past that works for them. And even though the direct contact that I had for McDonald's was no longer there, the next person was like, hey, you have any time? We've got teacher appreciation coming up. Can you do da-da-da-da-da? And I was like, absolutely. Run me that first check though. And then I'll hit you. Once that check clears.
That's a whole other podcast about how to make sure you're getting your money.
Run me my money.
Because even McDonald's will run off with your check, honey. Sometimes you gotta, I love you guys, but make sure I get my money first before we,
But I think that's another aspect of business is accounts receivable, and making sure that you are getting paid.
Oh, it's so true.
And then making sure that you are taking care of your responsibilities as well, whether it's a deliverable or you're paying whatever, but it's that whole cycle. That's what's being in business is all about.
And part of that is also knowing what you're worth.
Absolutely.
You know,
oh, that's good.
You know, because there are a lot of, so you have to know like the way that the creator economy has continued to be dynamic. It flows.
It evolves.
It's not static. So, and then your own brand goes through different changes. And so you have to know, like, okay, will I continue to, am I going to accept this check now? Or am I going to be like, no, because of my numbers,
yesterday's price is not today's price.
Right.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is I do less brand deals now because I'm not taking a certain amount.
No.
Exactly.
And so we're in a market right now where they're lowballing a lot of people. And so you might see a lot of people do brand deals, but I already know they're getting like a very small fraction of what I would
have charged.
what I would command.
Yeah.
And so I just won't do it. Because I'm not going to be someone where it's like, because like we said, they all talk.
That's
well,
right.
she did this for this.
Yeah.
Like,
then
no,
you're setting
a
a precedence now. Yeah.
And the thing with like, I also want to say this too. I've never like bought ads. That's a huge thing that people do.
That's big right now.
So a lot of people have assumed that I bought ads and that's why we have. I'm like, that's organic. I just don't do it because I don't really believe in spending my money to go and just get these views.
Yeah.
Because it's just for me. I'm like, that's just draining.
Yeah.
And I don't feel that the payoff is good.
No.
Yeah.
Because
that's the challenge especially for YouTube, the ads. So there is a number of ways to look at that thing, but especially for YouTube, the ads piece, I feel just brings the inorganic views.
Yes, exactly.
Which is exactly what you don't want ever to happen.
Yeah.
Facebook ads, and I don't know if there's other, well, I guess even Instagram ads, those have a different metric.
Yeah, it's a little different.
It's totally, but the way that it works on YouTube, at least I know they're trying to change it, but it just seemed like it would drop a ton of views on a video and then nothing.
Yeah, because and the only time I can see that it may be good is if you really want to try to get this maybe a little bit of social credit on the video to be like, 20,000 people watch. Well, maybe I'll watch. That would be like the only reason.
Yeah,
but even like, with that,
but to sustain, like a lot of people look at Mr. Beast and they go, "Oh my goodness, look at all the views." Well, this guy pays huge amounts of money for ads.
He does,
and this, and even with brand deals, right? I had someone tell me once, they were like, Rita, so when you guys do your brand deals, how much do you usually pay for your ads to promote it? I said,
how much do you pay for your ads?
That's what I said. I said, what?
I fear we don't know what the brand deal looks like.
I was like, what are you talking about? Why would I pay for ads for this brand deal? If they want to promote it, they can promote it.
Correct.
Yeah. I'm just getting my check.
And by the way, I charge them for that, just so people know.
Right.
If you're using me beyond the scope of like my page and my platform, and how long are you using it?
Yeah.
It's not forever. It's not exclusive. You have to talk about all those things.
All those things.
Yes.
Because they will monetize the heck out of your content. Mad money off of your content, because I have seen stuff been like a year out and they are still using those same images, that same content.
If it
works
for
them,
continue
great.
Using it,
but that's why I'm like, you have to think about that too. Like when you are contracting with these brands, it's like, oh, okay, well, how long do you guys plan on using this? And here's the payout structure that I have for after 3 months. This is how much I ask that you pay me if you're going to continue using my stuff, because they will, and they're making good money, especially off of Black people. Yes.
Perpetuity is not a thing. We're not.
And now the new economy really is you don't really grow as organically as you did before. Now everything is about ads.
That's right.
And it's on every platform.
Unfortunately, yeah.
But so I've just sacrificed.
Yeah.
I've just been like, then I'm not going to get that.
Exactly.
Because we have such a already, if you have billions of views, you're not necessarily saying, I got to go and pay for more ads.
Right.
Because the views the videos that have hundreds of millions of views, they get suggested on its own.
That's right.
So,
you don't need to.
I'm not really going to do it.
No.
Yeah. And on the platform, so for example, our Instagram is a lot smaller. It's like 60,000, right? Because we never focused on it.
No, understood.
And
but 60,000,
and we really
still pretty good.
we really don't really upload on there, maybe once every blue moon. But people have been like, "Oh, Rita, you got to work on the Instagram." No, no, it's there,
It's just holding the space, really.
It's more about maybe our personal Instagrams more than just the family one.
Yeah.
But they're like, but I know I could buy ads and I could, push the reels.
Yeah.
Like we could do it, but it's all about what am I going to get out of this?
Correct.
At this point in our business, because like I said, we're no longer building, we're branching,
right?
And so that just looks different. So now, like I said, it runs itself. We don't do as many brand deals because everybody's kind of doing their own personal things.
Right.
And so and then everyone's gotten older.
Right.
Like China was there. She saw my daughter get, engaged.
Oh, what?
So that's why my voice is a little up because that whole weekend.
Yeah. We were all we just kept looking at each other, like me, April, John, Paul. We're like, how is this happening? Like,
it's crazy.
Why would she be old enough for this? But like, we also know that she's fully a grown woman, but like, what?
It's like this dichotomy. Like,
that's
what?
Crazy.
But so everybody's like doing their own thing. And we've just, I think a lot of times that's one thing you have to also know in your business when something has run its course.
Yeah.
And it's now just, it's like a show that goes into syndication.
Yes.
That's where we are right now.
Right now
and as we transition into like
good.
other things, like I was telling you earlier, and I've told Taina this, like I'm writing. So next year it's going to be very different.
Yes.
Yeah.
And, but the show, our channel is like in syndication, and it's become generational. And the funniest part is that we've always been recognized, but the recognition just keeps going higher and higher and higher.
Despite you not like churning out a bunch of new stuff.
It's crazy.
Wow, that's amazing.
I can't go. Like, I'm literally, it doesn't matter what state I'm in, what country I'm in. I could be in a Golden Corral. I could be at, and no, literally, that's what I was. I was in some really podunk town in North Carolina at a Golden Corral.
Hilarious.
And it was like, oh my goodness. And it was like, what? It was just everywhere.
That's great.
And I mean, I kept story after story after story. And I think it's such a blessing because there are people from all walks of life.
Yeah.
I've even a homeless guy who said, this is the only thing that keeps my daughters like distracted is watching you guys and a couple of other friends who have their channels. And we were blown away.
That's good. And that's right where I wanted to land is that exactly what you're saying is in terms of the legacy of impact that your content has had. And I love that it's like, because, what we talked about earlier was you didn't necessarily know if it would be an evergreen, but it has turned out to be evergreen because it's like touching new generations. People are clipping them up and putting it on.
So I was telling TikTok. Him earlier that older people, like young adults, late teens, they're making edits. And they're talking about like my childhood, and
that's so cute.
It's incredible.
Listen,
it's beautiful.
For those of you who are not on TikTok, edits are to be like, I have seen creators be like, so y'all not gonna make no edits of me, like y'all, so I'm not good enough for edits, and then people will be like, okay, fine, we'll make you some edits. So for people to organically include you in their edits is kind of a big deal. I know that doesn't seem, but like for the younger generation, that is a big deal. That's pretty cool.
Perfect. That's because what it does is because the younger generation may not actually know where the content is. They don't even find it. It might never be suggested, but because it's being put on TikTok in this new format, in this new way, they see it. They're like, oh, snap, let me go check that out.
And like you said about shows that have gone into syndication or whatever, younger generations are learning about like the living singles and the different worlds through edits online. The same thing is happening for you. So that is a testament to what you've built that now it's like gone into that a new stratosphere. That is very cool.
We had a friend who was like, Rita, I was on Southwest Airlines, and do you guys know you guys were on there? And I mean, we knew, we know where our stuff is, but it's just incredible because we don't really talk about it, because it's like I feel blessed, but my husband, he's more the guy. He's the salesman, he will be the salesman, And I'm just kind of like, exactly. And I'll just kind of be like, I knew, but they're like, why didn't you guys tell us? Because I like the organic reach. If you're gonna find us, then you find us.
I love that. Yeah, and I think that's a great place to land right there. There's so many nuggets of wisdom that was shared, even in the story, earlier parts of the story, how you guys launched and why, and understanding that why at a deep level, and then just making some really critical choices that really benefited you guys and really fit your unique strategy and skill sets as you guys were approaching the platform. But then, seeing that pivot, like, okay, this is the content side of it, and that's great, and the money is coming in, but it may shift, it could change. How do we make this into a sustainable business that is repeatable, that is, what's the term I'm looking for? Where you can anticipate it, right? You can depend on it.
Yes.
Those are the types of things that creators really have to think through in their process. Maybe not as you're getting started, but definitely down the road a little bit. You want to be cognizant of some of the decisions you're making now and how that will impact your content and your business going forward. We can't thank you enough for coming through. Yes. This can't be the last time. We're definitely going to have you guys.
There's much to talk about.
There's way more to talk about here.
I love talking about it. This is my area where I can talk all day about it.
Yeah. And that's what this podcast is all about. We really want to share with people the ins and outs. I think for many, we definitely want to make sure that we will share, in the description and in the show notes that your handles are there. There are many who are going to be able to go and check out what your content has been and what are some of the things you guys have done. But if there's anything new or anything that you got coming up that you want to share with folks that it might be coming in the next year, I know you talked about a series of books.
Well, for me, I'm writing a fiction book series that will be coming out next year.
Awesome.
I would say that it honestly, I can't really say that there's something new per se.
Got it.
The girls, like I said, my daughter, she has a very big gaming channel, so she continues to build on that.
Yeah.
And my other daughter, she's doing the nostalgia brand, so she's loving that, and it's just fun because for her, it's interesting because people love nostalgia. So she'll talk about, I don't know, like any topic. And then all of a sudden someone will say like, oh my goodness, I grew up with that. Or I'm the little girl in that picture. Oh, it was like,
that's
so cool. Like Uncle Arthur books.
Yeah.
So there's, she did a whole thing on that. And there was like this, picture of all these little kids, and one of them was like, I'm the little girl there, and I've been looking for this picture for the longest time because my grandfather, he's the guy that's the talking in the, because there was a guy standing in it.
That's crazy.
That's the kind of connections she's making. And so and I like to talk about that because while my daughter has a huge gaming channel, the nostalgia one is smaller,
right?
It's touching people in a very different way. That's good. And then my son, well, he's in college, so he's been working, from the time he was young. So we're like, just have fun, and just so he's not really doing anything.
Good
with
for
that,
him.
Good.
And then my third daughter, she and I are building a SaaS, like a software as a service.
Yes.
So
nice.
We're getting it. She's really into tech, and so we are building that.
That's dope.
And so we are getting in, so that will be launching soon. So and it has nothing to do with the family brand. Right.
You have the latitude, as I mentioned before, to kind of branch into different things, areas of interest. You can explore. You can explore, and I love that. I think that's where you find your zone of genius, and you're able to provide something to the world that is both fulfilling to you, but also impactful to those who receive it. That's absolutely amazing. Absolutely amazing. Again, want to say a word of thanks to you for coming and hanging out with us for this episode of the How It All Works podcast. Man, this was a good one.
Yeah.
I don't know what we're going to do to follow this up.
I don't know.
But we hope you come back and check us out for the next one. But family, listen, there is a moment in everyone's life where you say to yourself, wonder if I want any more. Wonder if I want to push for greater. I wonder if there's anything else that I can experience outside of what I'm currently experiencing. And I think that question is innate to the human experience. And when you have that question, what you do next will determine whether you're successful. This, again, has been another episode of the How It All Works podcast. I'm your host, Kirk Nugent. This is my co-host,
Tyna Nixon.
And our lovely guest, Rita Mitchell. And we will see you in the next one.
Bye.